Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to The Ray Taylor Show, where I bring you the reviews on the latest movies and TV shows, as well as classic and foreign films. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this podcast, I'll be talking about all things film and television. Whether you're looking for a new show to binge or want to know if that blockbuster is worth the trip to the theater, or just want to hear my thoughts on a classic or foreign film, I've got you covered. So join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes, and let's dive into the world of film and television together. On today's episode, I am talking about the film Polite Society. Came out this year, 2023, written and directed by Nida Manzoor, starring Ria Khan, Rita Arya, and Renu Brindle. Man, I really try and knock these names out of the park, but I gotta tell you, Indian names are a tough one, are a bit tricky for me. Or Pakistani names. I'm not exactly sure. The region, I apologize. Either way, the names. This movie, Ria Khan believes that she must save her older sister, Lena, from her impending marriage. After enlisting her friend's help, she attempts to pull off the most ambitious of all wedding heists in the name of independence and sisterhood. I am just ruining every aspect of this review right off the top. I already started by brutalizing every single name, and then that plot summary, I crashed, I burned, people ran out with fire extinguishers and sprayed me down because I was on fire as if I were a stuntman myself. This movie, however, is also about an aspiring stuntman, stunt person, stunt woman, a stunt enthusiast. Overall, I thought this movie was fun. It wasn't a great movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It was fun. There are things about this movie I think could have made it way better. Like, if they tweaked one thing, it would have elevated this movie to potentially one of my favorite movies of the year. And I enjoy action comedies, which this movie is. I just wish the action in the action comedy was better. I thought the comedy was fine. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed the original story, the unique characters. But it felt a lot like a TV show more than a movie in a lot of ways, which the writer-director, Nida Manzoor, has done mostly TV. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's just the fact that this is one of her first films. I don't think it's her first, but one of. But I still had a lot of fun. It's not going to make my top 5 list of the year. Spoilers for that. That will come out in January of next year. But it's not going to be it's not my favorite movie. It's not on the list of my favorite movies. But it could have. It really could have. If the action was handled differently, could have been my favorite movie. But I did enjoy this movie. Everything else I really did enjoy. So it's just kind of sad. It's sad how one misstep, at least in my opinion, I'm sure there's a lot of people that love this movie, but one misstep, in my opinion, kind of spoils a lot of this movie. And considering the subject matter, especially for one of the characters in this movie, it's a missed opportunity, I would say. But I do appreciate this movie as telling an original story, an interesting story. You have two sisters. One of the sisters has a dream of becoming an artist, right? Something I can sympathize with as somebody who has many dreams in my life, and being an artist on some level is one of them, and struggling with that path, which is not a very easy path. It is not a path that is is easily attained in this world that we live in. The other sister wants to be a stunt woman, and she's struggling to make these stunt videos for her YouTube page in order to get herself out there, but she's still in the training process. She's younger as well than her other sister that's trying to be an artist, so the age difference kind of, I think, plays into the dynamic of the two sisters. And they support each other. They're very supportive. One a bit overly supportive, I think, in a way that is another small aspect of this movie that annoyed me a little bit. And it's filmed like an action movie. A goofy action movie, but it's filmed like an action movie. And the film doesn't take itself too seriously. It is an action comedy, which is exactly what you would expect in an action comedy. To not take itself too seriously, right? There are all-out fights that happen in this movie. Like heightened fights, like exaggerated fights that wouldn't actually happen in real life between like classmates, between sisters, between different people. But because it's an action comedy, it's elevated in that way. And in some ways reminded me of Scott Pilgrim. Now, Scott Pilgrim obviously is visually a lot different, but that heightened sense where everything's bigger, the fights are like these epic fights. I think everything's handled better in Scott Pilgrim, but definitely gave me that kind of a vibe watching this movie. But again, I wish the fight scenes were done better. Because I love the idea, big fight scenes, go exaggerated in the fight scenes, make it feel like we're in the imagination of this girl that wants to be a stunt woman. So I get all of that. But if they had made the fight, like if she had gotten, and maybe she did, I don't know. I assume if she had more experience directing fight scenes, action movies, I think it would have been handled better if maybe she had worked with stunt people who specialize in fight scenes and fight choreography, which I would assume if you're making a movie where one of the lead character, the main character of this entire movie's obsession is to become a stunt woman, I think to have that related and highlighted in the actual fight scenes, because stunt woman specifically, she's like training in the kind of fighting types of stunts. She's not like training to like drive cars in a special way. She's not necessarily training to take falls in any special way. She's specifically training for fight scenes. And yet the fight scenes in this movie feel very much like a 90s kids action movies like Three Ninjas, which I haven't seen that since the 90s, but I can only assume the fight scenes in this are very reminiscent of fight scenes in that. Just very cheesy. Sadly. They're not horrible, but as far as fight scenes go in 2023, they are far from great. And I think if those were tightened up a bit, this movie would have been easily one of my favorite movies, because everything else is so interesting and new and different, which are all things I love. But I think the biggest opportunity and the biggest aspect of this movie being that she wants to be a stunt woman, she wants to get like specifically martial arts stunt fighting, to have that aspect of this movie not be at a certain level for 2023 is a bummer. I think it's the biggest. If that was changed, this movie would be elevated to a whole new, because it's an action comedy where the main star wants to be an action hero and she's training to fight. But coming out of this movie, there is no fight scene where I'm like, that was an amazing fight scene. There's barely Like, there's one fun fight scene between the sisters, but aside from that, everything is very cheesy. They're not horrible fight scenes because they're over the top and goofy. It kind of lends itself to excusing the fact that the fight scenes aren't that great, but if they had been, this movie would have been next level. Like, if I had come out of this movie saying those were amazing action scenes, then I would have been like, this would easily have been like one of my favorite movies of the year. Right? It's cheesy action, kind of like mediocre wire work type stuff. Like something you would see in, like, it is very much in that kids vibe, which everything else makes sense because they are kind of younger people, but in the fighting, like, it would have been so to have that contrast and everything being, I mean, that's one of the things I love about action comedies. The contrast between the goofiness of the comedy and the badassness of the action, and you don't have that badassness. Like, people are acting like things are badass, but they don't look that way. Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about Attention all Ray Taylor Show fans! We're excited to announce we've just released a line of exclusive merchandise featuring original artwork inspired by the show. Our high-quality shirts and biodegradable phone cases are a perfect way to show your support for the show and make a great gift for any fan. Plus, with each purchase, you'll be helping us continue to bring you great content. So don't wait. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com now and check out the full collection. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll show your support by grabbing some Ray Taylor Show merchandise today. And now, let's get back to the show. I appreciate everything else about this movie, but that was the big thing. Her family is great, supportive family, a little bit more supportive of the sister who wants to be an artist, while not so much about the main character who wants to be a stunt woman. Not really supportive as much. Obviously, there's some physical, like, things you're dealing with. You're putting your physical health on the line when it comes to being a stunt person, where being an artist, you're really just kind of putting your mental health on the line in a lot of ways. But still supportive parents. And it's set up an interesting dynamic between the sisters and their parents because of that. And the film goes places, like, narratively with the story, I didn't expect. In a really fun way. And there are a few other things, aside from the directions that this movie goes, that are interesting. There are a few other things in addition to the mediocre fight scenes that I had minor issues with. So to get into all that, like, I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed the sisters' bond. I enjoyed the overall idea of, wanting to follow your dream, having somebody in your life that also has a dream, and you're kind of like supporting each other in that thing, like both trying to accomplish something that's not likely to happen for most people, right? So to have that kind of other person that's also trying to do this crazy thing is very helpful. And especially when one of those people kind of decides to change and maybe gives up on the dream, or at least realizes that their path isn't what they expected. It's not the path that they feel is what they actually want to do, and how difficult that can be for the other person who's still trying to accomplish their thing. There's also fun moments with the friend group that our main character has. There's a lot of fun kind of heist type scenes that I enjoyed. So a lot of this movie I really liked. And the characters being, I'm not sure if they're Indian. I think they mentioned they're Pakistani, living in the UK. They've generations in the UK. But culturally, there's like a friend of the family or somebody in the community who's not necessarily trying to do an arranged marriage, but the parents are definitely kind of picking and choosing who he's going to be, kind of curating a list of potential women for him to marry. So that culturally is interesting and new. You don't really see that in films. Obviously, I've been watching a ton of Indian films for the past year or so, sometimes that comes up, especially in like kind of romantic comedies in Indian films. And also just like aesthetically, things are very interesting. I mean, culturally, they tend to be, they're not necessarily the minimalists, right? If Japanese people are the minimalists as far as design and aesthetics, the Indian and Pakistani culture is very much a maximalist. They're a lot of bright, shiny, beautiful colors and things and decorations, and you get a lot of that in this movie, along with a fun dance number that takes place. It's a really fun movie, which is kind of why the fact that this kind of centerpiece of everything, the fact that she wants to be a stunt person, the fact that that kind of main thing isn't that great. It's like, I don't know, like I mean, it's like if you're watching a boxing movie and the boxing scenes aren't good at all. If you're watching a movie about somebody wanting to be a musician and the music is really not good, or just very mediocre, like usually those things have to be at a certain level for it to make sense. And even though this is a comedy, I don't think the genre this movie exists in, I don't think is enough to excuse the fact that the fighting isn't very good. Which I'm sure there will be people in my comments, they're like, dude, it's an action comedy, get over it. Stop, it's too serious. Like, well, I'm sorry my opinions offend you. I would have loved to see better. Like this movie, while watching this, it was just like every time it's like, oh, it hurt because I wanted this to be. It could have easily been an epic film. And I and I understand. I relate to the struggle of wanting to be this thing that most people don't believe you can be, that most people never really succeed at being. So I relate to these sisters, and I relate to that struggle. So I enjoy, and the story is very interesting, goes like wacky directions. It's just that one aspect, seemingly a very important aspect, but it is what it is. So I do want to get into spoilers. So spoilers from here on out, because I do want to talk about specifics of this movie, specific scenes, specific elements of this movie, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it. Obviously, the fact that I didn't like the action scenes, don't let that hinder you. It's still a really fun movie, and maybe the way the action is filmed in this won't bother you, but watch this and then come back and tell me you wouldn't want to see those action scenes better. Tell me that this movie wouldn't be exponentially better if the action scenes were like done in a way that is kind of comparable to what we're used to seeing in 2023 in a adult movie. But even like I think Scott Pilgrim is kind of an apt comparison, because I think age-wise characters are a similar age, and tonally, like, that's a very funny movie as well. So obviously the aesthetic of video games and comics and that stuff doesn't really relate, but as far as the awesome action scenes, which maybe I'm just remembering that, but I seem to remember those fight scenes being a lot of fun. Anyway, spoilers. The aspect in this movie, one of the other small issues I have in this movie is that the younger sister that wants to be a stunt person is obsessed with the fact that her older sister is no longer as passionate about being an artist as she used to be. Almost in a way that she takes offense to it. Obviously, that leads her obsession with that leads her to uncovering this insane plot that this dude and his mom have with her older sister. But on its face, it's a bit much. Like, I can understand the disappointment, and maybe it's just the type of person I am. Obviously, people handle things differently. I would be definitely disappointed in that. And I could see, I guess, how people would, as a way to strengthen their resolve, want to keep somebody else from quitting because, you know, I don't know. On some level, it's almost like quitting would be contagious. But it felt a little bit much in this movie. So that's another small issue I had. And it's like, because I am an artist and I like to create things in general, like having that desire to create things, to be an artist, like just because she isn't into the type of art that she's making doesn't mean that that's like necessarily her quitting, as much as it could just be she hasn't found the right version of art. She hasn't found the thing that she's really passionate about creating, right? Maybe she's not into acrylic painting, right? When I started as an artist, I thought I was, I wanted to be like Dali, and I was doing surrealism in his style using acrylics, and it was something that was like a struggle for me to do, struggle for me to have motivation to do. And it took me years before I decided to change mediums and kind of try and develop my own style. And now that I have, and I've done that for like the last 5 to 8 years or so, like, it's effortless. It's so different. And it's something that I could see myself doing the rest of my life, something that I could easily find challenge in adapting what I'm doing into other mediums. But also, I enjoy other creative endeavors like creating podcasts, editing video, photography, Photoshop. There's a lot of things creatively that I enjoy doing that aren't painting surrealism with acrylic paint. So it's like the fact that her sister isn't into the thing, she's having an existential crisis, doesn't mean that she's done. It just means that whatever path she's on isn't what she's into, and maybe she needs a break. And maybe she's into directing because she seems to enjoy filming her sister do these stunt videos, even acting as a director in many of those scenes. So it's like, maybe that's her path. So it's like, I don't know. That's just an aspect of why it's irritating that her younger sister is so obsessed with the fact that she's quitting, right? It's just like, I don't know. But that's me being inside a life where those things kind of hit close to home in a lot of ways. So they affected me in a way that is probably unrealistic. Regardless, and maybe it's, their relationship as sisters. Obviously, I'm an only child. I don't have any kind of person in my life that I share that kind of bond with, not only being related, but also specifically trying to achieve a thing. I mean, I've had friends that want to achieve things like either being artists themselves or being graphic designers or being like stand-up comedians or whatever. But when I see them quit or give up on a dream, to me, I'm just like, well, maybe they just didn't, their passion for achieving that dream isn't the same as mine. And they're like, so I don't get at nearly, I'd never, like, if somebody wants to stop doing whatever they're doing, it's like, it's very common for that to happen. And, you know, if I see it's like they're trying to talk themselves out of it, that's a different scenario where it's like, you know, if it looks like motivation is something that they could use to do the thing, that's different. But I don't know. I'm not gonna. It's hard enough to like give myself the motivation to do these things that, you know, aren't immediately financially successful in any way, that take like years to like figure out and develop and follow. Like the connection between doing what I do and like income are so detached from each other that like it's an insane life to live in a world that is set up for a very different kind of business structure. Regardless, that's my thoughts on those things. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to promote. Are you looking for a way to take your love of The Ray Taylor Show to the next level? Look no further than Inspired Disorder Plus. As a member, you'll get access to a whole host of amazing perks, including the full week of shows, ad-free in both audio and video versions, a live painting archive, early access to the many faces, members-only discounts and deals, a podcast back catalog with over 600 episodes. But that's not all. As a member, you'll get access to my personal blog as well as my creative writing. You'll also get the chance to ask me anything you want. With all of these benefits and more, Inspired Disorder Plus is a must-have for any fan of The Ray Taylor Show. So don't wait. Go sign up now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and start enjoying all of the amazing perks of the membership. And now, let's get back to the show. Her being set up to get married off, clearly she's happy about it. Like her sister is desperate to break up this marriage. And at first it's like, okay, she wants to find out dirt on the guy. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. And then when she can't find any dirt and she finds out, she's really regret. Like, it's not that her sister is upset with her life and is reluctantly going out with this guy and considering marrying this guy because she feels like that's her only path that's available to her. It's like he genuinely makes her feel happy. And this sister, because she's so obsessed with her sister, her older sister, following her art career, that she's like, goes from like, she gets progressively more and more evil in trying to break up this marriage, to the point where she wants to like, where it kind of gets ridiculous, where she wants to like sabotage it. And there's the scene where she breaks into his house to leave condoms filled with lotion tied up and scattered around his bedroom, which I don't know how that would work. Obviously, that's a comedic scene for children, because anybody that's used condoms knows that just is ridiculous. It's just so stupid. Nobody's doing that with condoms in any way. And like, for that, and I don't even understand how that would work in a sabotage way. Like, her sister goes into his room and sees all of these tied off and filled condoms like displayed everywhere in a clean room. The bed is made. It's not like he was having some crazy orgy and wanted to save, like, he has these trophies from this massive orgy that he had in his bedroom, and he's saving all of the like unbelievable amounts of semen that came out of his body. Like, it just, like, that scene would be funny. But her coming up with this idea as a way to sabotage him was pretty ridiculous. But whatever. And just that progressive, like, she became a character that I didn't like. And then when you find out that actually this dude and his mom are like testing women to find out to clone his mom. Like the story becomes kind of Black Mirror in some ways, in a very comical, ridiculous manner. But it justifies unknowingly justifies all of the craziness that this girl is doing. And it all culminates together at the wedding scene, which there's the fun dance. I enjoyed the dance. Very kind of like had a martial arts flair to it, which I appreciated. The friends helping out, I kind of, the relationship with her and her friends, how they're there for her, and then she goes too far and they break it off, and then she comes back asking for their help, and they come back to help her, and the bully also comes to help her. I enjoyed that. It's kind of a heartwarming moment. And the end scene, like the end fight scenes, are, okay, whatever. Kind of similar to many of the other fight scenes. Cheesy, not that great. The only fight scene I really liked was when the sisters fought. And of course, it was so obvious that at some point she was going to pull off the spinning back kick. The flying reverse spinning kick thing. That was like when... if this movie wasn't so obsessed with her failing at that, it would have been better as well. Like, that was by far the cheesiest part. Because it didn't look... It's like, I don't know. Like, why is that? I get it. It looks flashy, whatever. But it's like the way she's falling and I don't know. It was a bummer. So obviously when it happened, it was like clear that was going to happen. Clear when it was happening that it was going to happen, and then she was going to pull it off. Although it would have been funny if she didn't pull it off. And it looked halfway decent, at least. Like, there were moments of these fight scenes that were okay. But it, like, gets to a place where it's like, it's so crazy that, like, I have to go along with the ride. But if the fight scenes were better, it would have been even better. Anyway. The gym, the kind of heist mission in the gym where they're trying to get his laptop to see if they can find dirt, was pretty funny. Like I said, the sisters fight was a lot of fun. There's what is this scene? Also, the fact that, which isn't a huge thing, the fact she wants to be a stunt person, but it's like, in the mind of this movie, stunts in movies is only fight scenes. It's not about being able to, like, and only, like, being able to do martial arts. It's not about, like, being able to take punches or kicks or, like, fall off of things. I mean, in most movies, the stunt people are the ones who are getting beat up, right? That's why characters like John Wick can be done by... A lot of their stunts can be done by Keanu Reeves because he's not actually taking a lot of damage. He might here and there, but not like stunt people, right? Because stunt people can make those scenes look realistic, look amazing, because they look like they're taking damage, which stunt people generally do take a lot of damage. It's nothing about, like, car driving, chases, crashing cars, being thrown around, falling off of buildings. Like, there are so many other things. Like, if they had done the fight scenes a little bit better, if they had incorporated all of the other things that stunt people actually do into this movie, I think it would have been awesome. Her having some airbag that's used in the final scene in one of the scenes where it's like she's jumping off a building, but she actually had this airbag set up because she wants to be a stunt person, so of course she's got an airbag. Like a car chase scene where she just happens to have studied driving on a course, and it's like, I want to be a stunt person. Like, her seeing all of these types of skills that she's trying to develop to be a stunt person, I think would have made this movie so much better. But it was still fun. Uh, and there's a moment after kind of she gets busted for sneaking in to hide these lotion condoms. She goes back eventually to apologize. She brings some food over to apologize. And the mom instantly forgives her and asks her to join her for a spa day. At first was a little over the top, but when you see where the spa day goes, I guess it makes a lot more sense. But it's like, man, people are really forgiving in this movie. And in that spa scene, when it turns and they're getting their waxing done, and it turns into like a torture scene, which I did enjoy a lot of this movie, how scenes turn into kind of action tropes, like torture scenes and things like that. I did enjoy that aspect of it. And she stumbles into the lab where she sees that they've been doing experiments and testing her sister, all this stuff. Also, the movie kind of felt long. Like, there's definitely stuff it felt like they could have cut out. I mean, I don't think it was long, but it felt long. Yeah, it's only an hour, 44 minutes. And maybe it's like if the action scenes or the pacing of some of that was more like an action movie, it would feel better. I don't know. It felt long, though. So, I enjoyed the look of the film. I enjoyed the unique story. The crazy twist was a lot of fun. The humor, cheesy, but it worked for kind of the age of the characters and the tone of the film. With some badass fight scenes, if this movie had some badass fight scene, it didn't even have to be like they could have gotten progressively better. And I think on some level they did, but I don't think they ever reached the level where it's like, oh, there we go. That's amazing. I think maybe that final fight scene with the mom is supposed to be that. But, I don't know. Maybe I wish it would have gotten better faster. I don't know. That's my biggest issue. But I did enjoy this movie. Polite Society. It is streaming now on one of the streaming services. It is available for you to watch at home. So if you want a fun movie to watch, check it out. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this episode of The Ray Taylor Show. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Polite Society. Don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for more movie and TV show reviews. And join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or over on youtube.com/inspireddisorder if you're watching these. Until next time, enjoy the show. Subscribe to The Ray Taylor Show on YouTube and everywhere podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Purchase Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.